This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Unknown assailants kidnap 75 and kill 18 in Nigeria's Niger state. Africa secures additional 400 million doses of COVID-19 vaccine from India. And DR Congo Prime Minister Ilunga resigns after a no-confidence vote in Parliament. Welcome to Africa Live on CGTN with me, Beatrice Marshall, in Nairobi. Well, let's start off in Nigeria, where unknown assailants have attacked different parts of Nigeria, allegedly kidnapping at least 75 people and killing 18 others. 50 of the victims were reportedly kidnapped in Niger State, while the other abductions occurred in neighboring states. Our correspondent Phili Haza reports from Abuja.
The police are yet to make an official statement about the attacks, but the co-convener of the civil society group concerned Shiroro youths, Abubakar Koki, affirmed the attacks. Abubakar says at least 50 people were abducted from his community in the Shiroro local government area of the Niger state. A total of 75 people were allegedly kidnapped in Thursday's attacks, while 18 others were killed in different parts of the country. There were other reports of kidnappings and attacks in Taraba, Kaduna and Delta states. Nigeria has been dealing with widespread insecurity, including terror attacks. Security experts say this could be one of the reasons why President Muhammadu Buhari replaced the country's military chiefs this week. President Buhari has tasked the new military heads in the Air Force, Navy and Army to step up their operations against crime across the country. Phil Ihaza, CGTN, Abuja.
The Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has announced that the continent has secured the supply of 400 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines from India's Serum Institute. That is in addition to the 270 million doses of vaccines that African nations were already waiting for. Here's CGTN's Girum Chala with more on that story.
The announcement from the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says the continent now has over 670 million doses of vaccines coming its way soon. This is after the Serum Institute, based in India, which is known for the manufacturing of vaccines and immunobiologicals, agreed to deliver 400 million doses of vaccines. That is in addition to the already secured 270 million doses.
With respect to the 400 million doses of vaccines, this is a deal that is being concluded with the Serum Institute in India, and it's around the AstraZeneca vaccines. And of course, this will be spread over this year and next year. The challenge we have in the hands now is, as we are seeing now, is that countries must get prepared, countries must request these doses and through the platform and start the distribution.
African nations also have another reason to be upbeat. The Afro-Exim Bank said it's ready to finance the purchase of these vaccines for member states.
Afro-Exim Bank again announced that they are committed up to $2 billion to support member states that were interested in working through the AVAC mechanism. AVAC is the African Vaccine Acquisition Task Team that was set up by the chair of the union, His Excellency Cyril Ramaphosa. So the financing is available to member states. We have now issued note verbals and with forms to member states so that they can begin to send in their requests to express their interest on the vaccines that they will need.
The Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has also indicated that the vaccination work in Africa will start soon, and it will be the over 3 million health workers on the continent who will be given priority when the vaccinations begin. Group Data CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Well, as a global rush for COVID-19 vaccines continues, there are fears African nations could be left badly exposed if richer and more developed nations hoard the vaccines. Now, African nations are banking on a global discussion in Switzerland around the vaccine to change the dynamics of how the continent accesses the crucial jabs. Here's CGTN's Daniel Arap-Moy.
The hoarding of vaccines by rich countries has complicated Africa's efforts to secure enough supplies for its population. The price of not solving the vaccine distribution challenge internationally has left many African countries scrambling.
The developed North, which has substantial financial resources, has purchased the largest stocks, while we in Africa are struggling to get our fair share. The painful irony is that some of the clinical trials for these vaccines were carried out in Africa.
According to Duke University's Global Health Institute, rich countries have locked up 60% of the global vaccine supply. Rwandan President Paul Kagame has called for a review and adjustment of social protection systems to fill gaps that have been revealed by the COVID-19 crisis.
The social protection agenda cannot be limited to wealthy countries indeed. In fact, the pandemic has also reminded us of how we are interlinked and how we are interdependent in many ways, so that in one part of the globe, things happening will affect the other part as well. It doesn't matter how rich or how poor we are.
Calls for a people's vaccine seem to be falling on deaf ears as wealthier countries have it their way. The promise of equitable access and distribution disparities of COVID-19 vaccines is feared will only prolong the pandemic unless the world join hands to defeat the deadly and yet invisible enemy. In Africa, many people are still pinning their hopes on the arrival of the COVID-19 vaccines. This year's Davos Forum will play an important role in rebuilding trust and ensuring no one is left behind during the global pandemic. Daniel Arap-Moy, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
Elsewhere, Zimbabwe's government has extended a nationwide lockdown by 2 weeks to the 15th of February as it tries to control a surge in new COVID-19 infections. The announcement comes days after the burial of 3 national heroes who succumbed to the second wave of the pandemic that has ravaged the country since the festive season. Here's Farai Mwaktuya.
An unprecedented triple burial at Zimbabwe's National Heroes Shrine. 2 cabinet ministers and a former military commander were laid to rest on Wednesday. All 3 died of COVID-19. The recent high-profile deaths have sent shockwaves through the nation and led to serious questions about the quality of health services in the country.
This is not only exceptional or unique to Zimbabwe alone, but it exposes us in terms of our health preparedness, our health facilities, because there was an elite approach to deal with the issues of health, where those with money, the politicians, the ministers would just fly willy-nilly and get treatment outside.
The government has allocated funds to shore up the emergency medical services response.
So our facilities, our healthcare workers and so on, they are quite clearly struggling, a bit stretched. But as usual, when we identify a challenge, we jump in and relook, rethink and see what is it that we can do. For ourselves here, we've decided we obviously need to strengthen what's happening in our hospitals, but at the same time, we are pushing and strengthening that prevention aspect.
To that end, a hard lockdown has been in force since early January. The government has scaled down operations, allowing only 10% of its workers to report for duty. The skeletal working structure has meant that some government offices, such as this one behind me, responsible for issuing identity documents, have completely shut down. There are concerns that the ensuing delays could inflict more economic pain on hard-hit Zimbabweans. Authorities say the restrictions are helping curb the spread of the virus while they plan to roll out vaccines.
I'm happy to say, though, we are very strategic. We are looking at all options. So we're not saying we don't want this, we don't want that, we'll just take this one. We're looking at all options because we know with this new virus, you cannot put your eggs in one basket.
Zimbabwe's treasury says it will draw on a budget surplus and tax revenues to buy enough vaccines for 2/3 of the population. Business leaders have also pledged financial support for the purchase of the much-needed jabs. Farai Mwakutuya, CGTN, Harare, Zimbabwe.
And still in Zimbabwe, the health system is struggling to cope with a spike in COVID-19 cases. The country's medical healthcare system has been in bad shape for years. And as CGTN's Daniel Arap Moy tells us, the government is now trying to ensure it can cope with the increased pressure.
The COVID-19 pandemic has brought tragedy to the lives of many people from all walks of life. In Zimbabwe, travel restrictions have barred the elite from seeking treatment abroad, forcing them to instead turn to local hospitals.
COVID-19 has taught us an important lesson that we are all mortals. The fight against this pandemic does not allow for us to choose who to walk with, work with, or run with. It does not discriminate between the powerful and the weak, the privileged and the deprived, the haves and the have-nots.
I think as Zimbabwean medical practitioners, we have been working under a broken system where we have been telling the government that the system is not working. People are dying from avoidable deaths. And now these people, at every opportunity they get, they would go to South Africa, Indonesia, Singapore to get treatment. Now that they are facing the same system that we're talking about, they think that it's a result of medical practitioners, but it's actually a result of a broken system.
The country's healthcare system has been crumbling for years and is now struggling to cope with the rapid rise of COVID-19 infections. And to make matters worse, Zimbabwe's economy was already in crisis even before COVID-19 struck last year.
Companies are closed, we are not getting any money, we are not getting any jobs, we are running out of the money we saved. People are panicking about catching the disease, but we should keep ourselves safe by following the guidelines and rules laid down by our leaders so that we stay safe. Since our hospitals don't have medicines and beds, so let's just stay home.
The government says it's doing the best it can with limited resources. The country currently has more than 80 working ventilators in public hospitals. Zimbabwe's health ministry says over 1,000 beds have been designated for COVID-19 patients in both private and public hospitals. Daniel Arap Moy, CGTN.
A team from the World Health Organization has visited a hospital in Wuhan. The experts also met with Chinese scientists as they try to research the origins of the coronavirus. Our reporter Su Yu-Ting has more.
In their first on-site visit since leaving quarantine, the WHO-led team went to the Hubei Provincial Hospital of Integrated Chinese and Western Medicine, one of the first hospitals to treat patients in the early days of the outbreak. Early on Friday, experts from the WHO held their first face-to-face meeting with their Chinese counterparts. Late Thursday, the WHO officials said the mission plans to visit hospitals and markets, such as the Huanan Seafood Market, where the first cases in Wuhan were traced back to. They also intend to visit the Wuhan Institute of Virology and laboratories such as the Wuhan Center for Disease Control. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Lijian told a news conference in Chinese capital Friday that the WHO and Chinese experts are working together to trace the origins of the virus. He said they've already held many exchanges through video, but he stressed the mission is not a probe.
I'd like to emphasize that this is a virus tracing exchange and form of cooperation between WHO and Chinese experts. It's part of a global research effort, not an investigation.
Zhao Lijian said China will hold an open, transparent and responsible attitude while continuing to cooperate with the WHO to prevent future risks and protect people's safety and health. Su Yuting, CGTN, Beijing.
You're watching Africa Live, still ahead on the program. DR Congo Prime Minister Sylvester Ilunga resigns after a no-confidence vote in parliament. And Nigeria seizes endangered animal parts headed for Vietnam.
Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climate and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
Tunis, Cairo,
Juba,
Johannesburg, Ethiopia, Tanzania.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Let's take you to the Democratic Republic of Congo, where the presidency there says Prime Minister Sylvester Ilunkamba has finally resigned. The resignation will now pave the way for President Felix Tshisekedi to rid his cabinet of his predecessor's allies. Ilunga, an ally of former President Joseph Kabila, stepped down after Parliament passed a no-confidence vote motion on Wednesday. This is the latest in a series of political victories that Tshisekedi has notched over Kabila. We can cross over to Chris Ochamringa. He's joining us live from Kinshasa for more. Chris, this new development, what can you tell us about the Prime Minister's resignation?
Well, the Prime Minister, Sylvester Ilunkamba, met with President Tshisekedi earlier today and tendered in his resignation. He said he was waiting for an official communication from Parliament notifying him about the censure, and he looked through it and agreed that it was done in accordance with the Constitution, and said given the political situation in the country, he has accepted to resign. Now, the political situation he was referring to was the power struggle that has been going on for about 2 years between President Tshisekedi and the former President Joseph Kabila. Now, former President Joseph Kabila had a majority in Parliament, the Senate and the government, and so whatever reforms or new initiatives President Tshisekedi would try to push through these key institutions of government would either be rejected or blocked. And so there was a crisis in the country. And so the president decided to end the coalition that he signed with his predecessor, Joseph Kabila, in December last year. And he said he will have to form a new political outfit known as the Sacred Union. And so this is part of the initiative that the president started. Beatrice?
Well, what does the Prime Minister's resignation mean, though, for President Tshisekedi politically?
Well, this means that President Tshisekedi will now have more control of the key institutions of the government. Like I mentioned earlier, he didn't have a majority in Parliament, but we have been informed today that he has already got 391 MPs who have crossed over from different parties which were allied to former President Joseph Kabila to his camp. It's known as Cap pour le Changement, heading for change. And he's also going to, the ministers who were working with under the Prime Minister, Sylvester Ilunkamba, there are 65 of them, will all have to step out so that a new cabinet is formed by President Tshisekedi. He has been very clear about nominating people who are loyal to him, who believe in his vision for the country, so that he does not face any frustrations or blockage from like happened before. That is the situation. President Tshisekedi is now, taking the reins of authority fully, because before he was quite weak, because former President Kabila had a lot of influence. But what I would like to say about this resignation is that it's a U-turn from what the Prime Minister had earlier mentioned. He described the censure that happened on Wednesday as illegal. He said it was going against the constitution of the DRC and the rules of parliament, and that he was just waiting for an official communication, and he indicated that he was going to challenge it in court. We don't know what really spurred him to have this sudden change of heart, but he has eventually decided to resign. Many people from the president's camp are very happy about this. They're saying now Congo is going to turn a new page. President Tshisekedi is going to implement the programs that he had announced to the country after assuming office. That is
Chris Ochamringa, we'll leave it there for the moment, but thank you for that update from DRC, DR Congo. Now, a former Central African Republic Seleka faction commander suspected of war crimes intends to contest allegations brought at the International Criminal Court against him. Mahamat Said Abdel Kain was detained and transferred to The Hague last week, and also faces charges of crimes against humanity allegedly committed in 2013. The arrest comes against the backdrop of fighting between CAR's army, backed by the UN, Russian and Rwandan troops, and rebels from both militia groups, who have now formed an alliance with the aim of seizing the capital and overturning the December vote. President Faustin Touadera was declared the winner of the polls. The Central African Republic has witnessed violence since rebels known as Seleka seized power in March of 2013.
What is clear is that as at this date, my client is presumed to be innocent. And if we have possession of all the evidentiary materials, we will arrange for our own witnesses, certain of the witnesses, to testify for the defense.
We have considered all relevant factors, including the need for the parties and the participants to prepare the rights of Mr. Said, especially his right to be tried without undue delay, as well as the current exceptional circumstances due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Therefore, the date for the commencement of the confirmation of charges hearing is set for Tuesday, 5th October 2021.
Nigerian authorities say they have seized a shipment of parts of endangered animals, including pangolin scales and ivory, headed for Vietnam. Customs officials say the 8 tons haul was discovered in a container declared as furniture at the Lagos port. Here is CGTN's Deji Badmos with more on that story.
It's not the first time that the Nigeria Customs Service has intercepted large quantities of parts of endangered animals. Nigeria is now considered a major hub for traffickers illegally exporting pangolin scales and other products of endangered species to Asia. According to wildlife trade watchdog Traffic, less than a quarter of major pangolin seizures from Africa came via Nigeria in 2016, and by 2018 that number had jumped to almost 2/3, and that 3/4 of the total weight seized was linked to Nigeria. Now, the latest haul was actually netted last week at the Lagos port, but the custom officials are only disclosing it now. A senior custom official says the items were concealed in a 20-foot container declared as furniture and had been processed for export to Vietnam. The total haul of the pangolin scales weigh 8,800 kilograms and it's worth around $2.4 million.
These logs were used to conceal the real content in the container. When we saw the log, we removed the logs, then we start discovering the sacks. We opened, we discovered the pangolin scales.
Now, other items such as ivory, animal horns, elephant tusk and lion bones were also found in the container. Authorities say a suspect has been arrested over the shipment and further investigations are ongoing. Now, the Nigeria Customs Service says it seized 927 kilograms of pangolin goods in 2016, 402 kilograms in 2017, and then seizures rose dramatically to 12.3 tons in 2018. Deji Badmos, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
And still on wildlife, researchers at a German institute have reported success in reproducing 2 embryos that would help save the northern white rhino from extinction. The World Wildlife Fund say that only 2 northern white rhinos are left, and they live in Kenya's Olpejeta Conservancy. CGTN's Wanja Mungai now reports.
Meet Najin and Fatu, said to be the remaining northern white rhinos on Earth. They live in Kenya's Olpejeta Conservancy, but how to get them breeding and thus ensure more of the species roam the jungle is an issue that has left scientists scratching their heads. Experts from a German research institute are working to multiply them. Recently, they managed to reproduce embryos to help propagate the species.
We are quite under time constraints because we want really a transfer of the social knowledge from the last 2 existing northern white rhinos to a calf. That means we have to produce a calf under the next 2-3 years.
Unfortunately, scientists say Najin and Fatu are infertile. With no male of the species left, Hildebrandt and his team have been using artificial reproductive techniques to regenerate the breed. In addition to 3 of the previously reproduced ones, the embryos are a big success. This report comes as a relief after a tough past year.
2020 was really a harsh improvement for all of us, but giving up, that is not the mentality of a true scientist, and we all incorporated the will to be successful. So we had these obstacles, we had all these problems, but at the end we managed to go back to Kenya and be successful. So Christmas Eve gave us a present, 2 embryos, and we are extremely happy about that.
According to Flora and Fauna International, a rhino named Sudan was the last male of the northern white species. He died in 2018, rendering the male subspecies extinct. Before the 70s, these mammals grazed in the wilds of Eastern and Central Africa, in Uganda, Chad, Sudan, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. But political instability led to poaching for their ivory horns, which then led to their near extinction in Africa. Only 4 of them were left at a zoo in the Czech Republic, and they were brought to Kenya in 2009 to dwell in a natural habitat. The scientists are hoping that embryos from deceased white rhinos would help advance their cause.
But right now we can't really work with the northern white rhino embryos because we haven't proven that we can produce a pregnancy. And therefore we're working with infertile southern white rhinos using this technology to helping them to have a calf and then get parallel the proof that the embryo transfer, the entire cascade is successful. If we can prove that, then we will go to Kenya and work with the northern white rhino embryos with the surrogate mothers there.
As for the southern white rhinos, the WWF reports that about 21,000 of them exist in South Africa's KwaZulu-Natal. But with 3 years left for the scientists to salvage the northern white species, only time will tell if the second largest mammal will thrive in numbers in African savanna woodlands. Wanja Mungai, CGTN.
China's vice president says relations with the United States are important for global prosperity and stability. Wang Qishan spoke during a virtual meeting with U.S. representatives. He said common interests between China and the United States outweigh their differences, adding mutual respect and cooperation are key to healthy and stable ties. The American delegation said the 2 countries should meet halfway and promote talks between the new U.S. administration and China. Well, let's now go to Uche Okoronkwo for the latest business news. Uche.
Thank you, Beatrice. And coming up on Africa Live Biz. A Dutch court orders Shell Nigeria to compensate farmers for oil spills. And South Sudan changes its time zone to ease business with its neighbors.
but at the same time it's exciting. It's new, it's different, it's a challenge.
It's really exciting.
Over the last 14 hours of rain.
Now, the Court of Appeal in The Hague has ordered the Nigerian subsidiary of Shell to pay compensation over oil spills in Nigeria's Niger Delta region. The Nigerian arm of the British-Dutch company is to issue payouts over a long-running civil case involving 4 Nigerian farmers who are seeking compensation and a cleanup from the company over pollution caused by leaking oil pipelines. Now, the court did not hold Shell's parent company directly responsible, but it did order it to install a leak detection system on the Oruma pipeline, which is the site of a significant number of the spills in the case. Now, the spills concerned were between 2004 and 2007, but pollution from leaking oil pipelines remains a major problem in the Niger Delta. The ruling could pave way for more cases against the multinational oil company. In the meantime, the International Monetary Fund says that government debt around the world shot up last year to approach levels last seen in the aftermath of World War II. That is, as nations stepped up spending to fight the COVID-19 pandemic and its economic fallout. Now, according to the Washington-based lender, public debt as a share of global GDP surged to 98% by the end of December, and that's from 84% at the end of 2019 before the pandemic struck. The total dollar value of global debt, which includes central and state government debt, rose to $89.6 trillion at year's end. The increase was particularly large amongst advanced economies, which can easily borrow at low interest rates. The debt-to-GDP ratio amongst those nations rose to 123% by December from 105% in 2019. And of course, it is expected to grow to 125% this year. And heading back to the continent, South Sudan's government says it will change the country's time zone from the 1st of February, setting the clock back by 1 hour. As CGTN's Patrick Oyet now reports, the move is aimed at making cross-border business easier for the East African nation, as it will bring the time zone in sync with its northern neighbors.
South Sudan currently uses the East Africa time zone, which is 3 hours ahead of the Greenwich Meridian time. The planned change will put the country in the Central African time zone. The government says the adjustment will bring South Sudan in line with international standards.
This change of the time will not have any negative on us or any negative impact. It will have no negative impact because we are only changing the time for the employees to report to the offices, for the business people to report to their businesses.
The new time zone means South Sudan will observe the same local time as Egypt, Chad, and neighboring Sudan. South Sudan's government says the country's geography is at odds with its current time zone. Adjusting it to match neighboring countries is expected to ease legal, commercial, and social issues that will make things like border crossing hours easier to manage between countries with time restrictions on movement of people. Residents of Juba have welcomed the move.
It also gives opportunity for some people. You know, as South Sudanese, sometimes we like sleeping a lot. But I know it will be another opportunity for some people to sleep. But again, we should not sleep and forgetting our business.
We shall be having more time to run the business. You can move around and you do more things than the previous time we used to have. And secondly, it will put us, it will align us with, in these countries where it will align us on the same time, like in case of the business trips and other things, I think it will put us on point.
The time change based on the location of the country. So it cannot affect anything. Let's see that South Sudan cannot feel that we are affected by this time zone. It is normal.
However, there are those who say the government should focus on other important issues in the country, such as implementation of the 2018 peace deal and kickstarting its economic recovery rather than the planned change of time zone. Patrick Oyet, CGTN, Juba, South Sudan.
Well, let's head to South Africa now. The country's Mines Rescue Services has successfully tested a mobile rescue winder, which is capable of traveling to depths of 3 kilometers underground in order to rescue trapped miners. Here's Angelo Coppola with the details.
The test took place at Goldfields South Deep Mine, one of the world's deepest gold mines southwest of Johannesburg. The winder has been in development since 2012.
Out of the 10 deepest mines in the world, 8 of them is in South Africa, and we needed something like this. We know we've got aging shafts, and not that we would like to use this, but we need to have a device that should something happen at that depth, we will be able and capable to rescue people successfully.
South Africa's mining sector safety record has been through challenging periods in the past 2 decades, compounded by super deep shafts and complex geology.
The safety of our people is the first and most important thing we do every day. And technology like this gives us the assurance that we can get all our people home safely every day, even if there's an event that is beyond our control. So this is basically an insurance policy that we hope we never have to use.
Stakeholders are convinced that the new equipment will make a difference in rescue missions.
We are blessed to have a team such as Mines Rescue Services, which is able to develop machinery such as this one. And especially where we are dealing with the deep mines, and especially where we are dealing with the mines that are fairly old, okay? And but they need to be operated. At least it gives that sense of assurance in the mining industry.
What it's going to do, it's going to give the people who are doing the rescuing a safe means of getting into the mines to fetch people. It's giving us an efficient means of getting people out the mine, 6 people at a time. And doing that, I think it's going to look after the safety of the rescuers, but also the people that have been rescued, because it's a safe system to get everybody out of the mine.
The current configuration will be able to move 6 people at 1.5 kilometers per hour, either from the surface or from 3 kilometers underground.
If we can find a way of how best can we actually improve the size of this rescue winder, I think we will actually arrive to the situation. Maybe 12, because I just think about where there is maybe 1,000 people underground.
Health and safety remains a key focus of the mining industry in South Africa and across the world, but it's always nice to have a bit of insurance in case something does go wrong. I'm Angelo Coppola for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
And that's all for now on Africa Live Biz. But ahead on Global Business Africa, Kenya slides into recession for the first time in 2 decades. We'll bring you more on that at top of the hour. For now, it is back to you, Beatrice.
Uche, thank you. And we still have more news for you on the program coming up. We take a closer look at how COVID-19 has financially strained many.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Kanata, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
The economic consequences of COVID-19 have financially crippled households across the continent. Many people have been forced to start the year by seeking loans. In today's episode of Panorama Africa, CGTN's Lindy Mtongana takes a look at rising personal debt and the risky borrowing trends emerging in Kenya and South Africa.
The first month of the year is jokingly called January in South Africa and in January in Kenya, referring to the hunger associated with being broke. But it's hardly a laughing matter. In many cases, the beginning of the year marks the start of a vicious cycle of debt. Nairobi-based debt and money management coach Roy Okonji sees similar patterns at the start of every year.
January is like a consequence of December, so to speak. What happens is that very many people have not nurtured the discipline, the financial discipline needed to handle December just like any other month. And therefore, they tend at that time to forget that January is coming.
A quick drive out of Nairobi, we meet Consolata Bahati Zena, an actress, singer and producer for local TV stations. In 2020, the coronavirus pandemic shut down the creative industry, forcing Bahati to find another way to sustain her family. Together with her husband, she now offers training in music and video production.
All my programs which are being aired on KTN, they all stopped at once, so I had to come up with this idea. I thought I should just put a studio here, since in Uviru there is no studio. And also I thought of coming up with a tuition/internship.
But with only a few students, taking out a loan seemed like the next best option.
Because life was so tough and I needed money for my kids. You know, when they are at home, they eat a lot.
Schools have since reopened and parents, including Bahati, are turning to mobile lenders to keep their children in school.
So I borrowed yesterday and I had to, because of my kid. I didn't want her to lack peace while in school, and she's completing her course Form 4. So I had to do that.
And while business is slow, Consolata hopes to be able to pay back the loan.
Apply loan. I believe I will pay. I can't promise because time is tough. Life is tough nowadays, but I just have faith I will pay it.
Since the launch of the mobile banking service M-Pesa in 2007, Kenya has witnessed a boom in digital lending, enabled by the widespread use of mobile phones and few regulatory barriers. Just a quick search on an app store reveals well over 60 options for digital lenders, all of whom offer quick and convenient loans.
Fintech, or the financial technology that has come in Kenya, that is increasing a lot, or a lot of apps have come up where people can easily borrow. And actually most of the microfinance or even Shylocks are also moving to apps because it's easier, and they can also be able to sell to a big clientele, or they can be able to reach out to a wider clientele.
We're trying to fight against some of the obstacles that consumers usually face. That means things like needing to go to physical location to request credit, the need to provide collateral in order to access that credit, the time wasted between applying for the credit and receiving it or not receiving it, and other forms of prejudice.
Dear customer, did you know that you can grow your loan limit
But there are downsides, like incessant mobile marketing, encouraging one to borrow more, and interest rates as high as 45% a month.
30 days and watch your loan limit grow. They encourage you to take loans. When you take long to apply for their loans, they think that they have lost their customers. So, that's just encouraging us to apply for more and more loans.
People get to a point where they begin to look at them as saviors without caring and thinking about the end effect of the same. Because the truth is that they are very costly compared to mainstream loans. They're very costly, and they come with a lot of pressure at the time of payment.
The questionable practices of some mobile lenders are not only associated with getting more people to borrow increasingly larger amounts of money, but also with ensuring those borrowers pay that money back. Some loan apps have been known to gather the personal data of their customers and then use that information to bully and shame them in the event of defaulting.
We have seen some organizations, as you said, during the loan collection process, essentially sending out messages to borrowers' entire phone book, trying to make their friends and family debt collectors. We as Chala and other members of the Digital Lenders Association of Kenya, we strongly are against and criticize such moves.
Despite the condemnation, mobile lenders do not need even so much as a license to operate. Anyone can start a lending app with just about whatever interest rates or terms and conditions they choose.
So the truth of the matter is, at least here in Kenya, currently, I'd say the sector is not externally regulated. We're a lot closer to self-regulation. So that's why we're currently in discussions with legislators and regulators in Kenya on creating more formal regulation that will seek to improve consumer protection without necessarily killing the nascent industry.
It may be some time before regulators and policymakers catch up with trends in the digital lending space. Until then, best be careful who you borrow from. Let's take a look at the situation in South Africa now. Long before the country reported its first cases of the coronavirus, there were already concerns about the unsustainable borrowing culture of the country's middle class. With net income falling by around 20%, many high and middle-class South Africans have been resorting to unsecured loans.
So personal loans have increased a lot, as well as payday loans and also credit cards, whereby, as I'm speaking to you right now, most of the credit cards, they have already reached their maximum, so they cannot even be able to access them anymore.
South Africans are among the most indebted individuals on the continent, with 26.9 million people owing over $130 billion. A closer look at these figures reveals a worrying scenario. 42% of credit-active consumers are struggling to pay their debt. South African consumers spend $6 of every 10 they earn on paying back loans. 12 million people have bad debt, meaning they've missed 3 or 4 monthly repayments. Those with bad debt have an average of 6 loans each. The COVID-19 pandemic has only made matters worse. South Africans have faced some of the world's toughest lockdown restrictions. The effect on the economy has been devastating. Pay cuts, job losses, and business closures have left the pockets of millions empty.
Consumers are borrowing in order for them to survive, not just to buy luxury things, just to survive, because most of them have lost employment, or maybe one household member is no longer working. Now they are relying on one income.
With infections on the rise, it's clear that this pandemic will continue to shape borrowing trends in South Africa and Kenya in 2021.
2021, it's not going to be easy. 2021 is also going to be difficult, because if the pandemic is still there, if you're not working, or maybe if your income has been cut, it's going to be very, very difficult for consumers to be where they are. It's going to take them time. It's going to take them months or years to be able to go back to where they have been before.
As much as there's anticipated growth this year, but that is going to take time, because before an economic turnaround happens, that is going to take more than 6 months. So meaning that the purchasing power of a common Kenyan is still going to be very low, and people are still going to borrow.
From every borrower's perspective, the reason for borrowing is always good. Because to them, at the point of borrowing, they're pressed. So borrowing looks like a solution. But then we have to differentiate good and bad debt from an impact perspective. Good debt is that debt that leaves you better than it found you in the long run.
The full effect of COVID-19 on Africa's economies remains to be seen. But what is clear is that Africans will continue interacting with lenders, and debts may indeed pile up during this year. But it would be wise to heed the advice of the experts. If you must borrow, do so wisely. Let's now take a look at your sports news. Here's what's ahead. The Africa Nations Championship action resumes on Saturday as the last 8 fight for a place in the semi-finals.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find your game.
The quarter-final phase of the ongoing African Nations Championship in Cameroon will begin on Thursday, with holders Morocco among the favorites to defend their title. 8 teams will play over 2 days amidst concerns over the outbreak of COVID-19 in the tournament. CGTN Sadiq Shaban has more from Douala.
16 teams arrived in Cameroon a little over 3 weeks ago for this tournament, and after 3 rounds of matches, that number has now been whittled down to just 8. The Democratic Republic of Congo football team is still recovering from a devastating blow inflicted by coronavirus. Over 12 players and 3 officials have contracted COVID-19 since the tournament began. But the team bravely beat Niger 2-1 last week in their last group game to qualify for the last 8, despite 5 players sitting out of that match with coronavirus, including the coach, who has now recovered.
We have been isolating and testing since the team was hit with COVID-19. The latest round of testing has revealed negative results for us, including me. But we shall continue to take precautions and follow health protocols.
On their part, host Cameroon have failed to impress their local fans despite qualifying for the last 8. The team has been accused of lacking ambition, lacking determination and being wasteful in this tournament, something that the management say they have addressed going into their match with DR Congo.
That has been our reality, unfortunately. We are happy to make changes and corrections as soon as we notice gaps and opportunities, because Cameroon people are looking up to us to not only win our matches, but progress to the next round of this tournament.
So here's the tournament business phase at a glance. Mali will play Congo on the first quarterfinals on Saturday before DR Congo play Cameroon in the second match of the day. On Sunday, holders Morocco will face Chipolo Polo of Zambia before Guinea square it out with Amavubi of Rwanda. Now, very few fans will be allowed to watch these matches here over the weekend due to restrictions placed in place by local health officials scrambling to contain the spread of COVID-19. Sadiq Shaban, CGTN, at the Japoma Stadium in Douala, Cameroon.
Kerone Whiteboy is a judo heavyweight name in the making. The South African and African champion is fresh from winning 2 confidence-boosting gold medals last year. She's now targeting more success in 2021 with her sights firmly on the Tokyo Games. CGTN CS Duplessis tells us more.
You just have to take the pain every single day, but you adapt to it, you learn to it, and you don't get angry at the person because you understand why you are here, and everyone makes mistakes. So you just get back up, positive, say sorry now and then just get back onto the mat and go with the flow. Yeah.
Despite being known as the gentle way, there's nothing gentle about judo. But for the under 48 kilogram African champion, it's a way of life, and a sport she is thriving in after claiming back-to-back titles in Cameroon and Senegal respectively, despite having many months of inactivity due to the global pandemic.
Obviously that was my goal, to win, but sometimes you think, oh, was it good enough? The training, lockdown killed your spirit, but when I saw I got the first medal and I pushed for the second one, I was so happy. I was ecstatic because then I knew I'm on the right path.
The BCom Financial Science graduate believes that in a country like South Africa, where there is a dire need for women to protect themselves, that judo could play a part in the fight against gender-based violence.
Judo is a self-defense sport, and for ladies that are in that position or might be in the position in the future, judo is amazing to help you, not only with self-defense, but just having a little bit more aggression so that when someone is trying to make you a victim, you can just blow them away with the attitude that you have and they won't stand a chance against you.
In 2019, the University of Pretoria judoka became the first South African woman to win the African Championships in 20 years. But now her laser focus is set on another historic milestone, qualifying for the Olympic Games.
Having to secure that, I know I would obviously make my family proud and everyone else proud, but for myself, how hard I've worked to get there, I would be ecstatic. And just to make space open for the younger people to come up, it's a big honor.
The African champion continues to grow from strength to strength and is evolving into a formidable force in the under 48 kilogram weight division. And with back-to-back championships in the bag in 2020, her confidence at an all-time high, White Boy is edging ever closer to achieving her lifelong dream of representing the Rainbow Nation on the mat at the Olympic Games. CS Duplessis, CGTN, Pretoria.
Japan's